Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and before we get into the show, I would love to let you guys all know that this will be my final show here at the GSMC Sports Network. I have future opportunities that I am looking forward to outside of working here at the GSMC Sports Network. It has been an honor to be here as long as I have since April. It's been a great journey, developing my broadcasting and communication skills through this opportunity here. So I do appreciate everybody that has gone, or everything and everybody that has helped me out throughout the way. And I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in here to the GSMC Hockey Podcast and helping out support. But with that being said, we have a great show for you guys today nonetheless, where we're going to continue with our season previews, just chugging along. We got the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers on dock for today. That will be the first and fifth segment of the night. My second segment will be talking about Torrey Krug has suffered an injury that will likely hold him out for the entirety of the 2024-2025 season. We're going to be talking about that injury and how that affects the St. Louis Blues. Our third segment is going to be talking about a phenom, 16-year-old Gavin McKenna. He is not at the Canadian showcase for the World Junior Classic here, which is a U20 tournament. So we'll talk about that, whether or not he deserves to be on the World Junior Classic team. In the third segment. In our fourth segment of the night, we're going to be talking about the top 10 centers in the NHL. So that's the itinerary for my final show here at the GSMC Sports Network. Before we get into all of that, as always, if you guys would like to support the GSMC Sports Network in more ways than you already do, use the tips and donations link at the GSMC at gsmcpodcast.net. It goes a long way, helps support out all the creators here at the GSMC Sports Network, and it does mean a lot to us. So if you guys would like to help support us here at the GSMC Sports Network, use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. So without further ado, we're going to get right into this first segment of the night, talking about the Dallas Stars, giving a season preview for this team. So what we're looking at with the Dallas Stars is a team that's really trending in the right direction and completely overhauling a generation, right? They had this team with Jamie Benn, with Tyler Seguin, with Joe Pavelski, who has officially retired as of today, and they have completely changed the leaf and made it so much younger, adding guys, Rupe Hintz, who is the oldest of the young guys, adding Jason Robertson, adding Wyatt Johnson, Logan Stankoven, two rookies from last year. So this team completely did a 180 from what we've seen, or to the Dallas Stars teams of the mid 2010s or even the late 2010s. And, is that for the best? I think absolutely so. This team looks really, really good when you look at it on paper. Now, what we're looking at with the lines here, we have the first line going to be a mix of those two generations. Jason Robertson, who's one of the best wingers in the NHL. Rupe Hintz, who's one of the best centers in the NHL. Then Tyler Seguin on the right wing. Left wing, Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnson, and Logan Stankoven. Mason Marchment, Maverick Bourque, and Matt Duchene on the third line, and Evgeny Dadonov, Sam Steele, and Colin Blackwell on the fourth line. The defense is really where this team looks very, very impressive. We have Thomas Harley, Miro Heiskanen, Issa Lindell, Ilya Lyubushkin, Brendan Smith, and Matt Dumba. And in goal, of course, it's Jake Ottinger and Casey DeSmith, who they just got this offseason. So their offseason acquisitions are Ilya Lyubushkin, Brendan Smith. They add Maverick Bourque. They add Colin Blackwell to the team. But other than that, the team remains pretty much the same as the team that just went to a Western Conference Final, only losing in 6 games to the eventual Stanley Cup runner-ups in the Edmonton Oilers. This team is fantastic, and it got better. So this team is looking to extend the lead that it has on the Central. I mean, this team played very well last season with rookies like Logan Stankoven and Wyatt Johnson absolutely lighting the league by storm. Both of these guys are 21 years old. And then, with Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, these older guys on the forward court make it look a lot better. When we're looking at some of the contract situations now with the Dallas Stars, they are in a little bit of cap trouble. Of course, they are one of the teams with the highest cap hit at I stand corrected. I must have been looking at the Minnesota Wild earlier. Anyways, Dallas Stars actually has a lot of cap room, $7 million. So they've been very, very smart with their money. It's really contracts like the Matt Duchene contract, the 1 year by $3 million for 33-year-old Matt Duchene is a fantastic contract. Sam Steele, $1.2 million at 26 years old. You have Wyatt Johnson, Logan Stankoven, both on ELCs still. You have Wyatt Johnson on an ELC for another year, Logan Stankoven on it for another 2 years. You do have a lot of money tied up in Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, but compared to the other teams like the Oilers, like the Avalanche, with $12-13 million tied up in their superstars, it does make it look a little bit better with 9.85 and 9.5 for those guys. It is also 8.45 for Rupe Hintz. I believe he signed this contract this offseason. It's 8.45 for another 7 years, which is going to be a really good contract. Rupe Hintz is a fantastic forward. It's going to help out this team in the long run. Going to be a real big, real big person for the Dallas Stars for their postseason success going forward. Jason Robertson also is making a lot of money. He signed a bridge deal, 7.75 for the next 2 years. He's an RFA at the end of it. We'll see how much money he gets when that is up. Mason Marchment, 4.5 for the next 2 years, a cheaper contract, which looks really good looking back on it for the Dallas Stars. Another place where they save a lot of money is in the defense. They only have $23.5 million tied up in their defense, 8.45 of it, which is tied up in Miro Heiskanen, who is absolutely deserving of even more than that. He probably is a $10 million defenseman. He is that good at defense. We were talking during the postseason how he is matching up with Cale Makar offensively and is a fantastic two-way defenseman. Miro Heiskanen looks really good. Issa Lindell, 5.8 for the next year. It's a lot of money, but you need to be okay with shelling out that type of money if you want a good defenseman right now. Matthew Dumba and Ilya Dabushkin make around, combined they make $7 million. They make 3.25 and 3.75 respectively for the two of them. Both of them are on 2-year deals. Both of them look pretty good. A defensive pairing for $7 million is pretty good business. Niels Lundqvist, Brendan Smith, and Thomas Harley are all the ones making $1 million or less. Thomas Harley is actually an RFA this offseason, so I'm very, very interested to see what he is going to get in as an RFA. If they're going to just elect to do a long-term deal with $8 million available, this would be the time. What would that long-term deal look like? Something around the lines of like $6 million for 8 years could be a good shout for Thomas Harley. Or if they want to go with a bridge deal, it could be like a 5.5 by 2. This guy is 22 years old. There's no rush for him to be making as much money as, Miro Heiskanen is right now. He will have his time come. And then Jake Onger is on $4 million for the next year. He signed a bridge deal a couple years ago to get that, and now he's an RFA at the end of this season. The Dallas Stars are so smart with their money. Jim Nill won General Manager of the Year this past season with the Dallas Stars. So, looking at it, it just makes sense. They only have one player that has dead cap on their team. A lot of teams have way more. The Blue Jackets have like 6 when you look back on it. So, having only one guy with dead money is very, very good for the Dallas Stars. They don't really have too many forward prospects. They do have Cole Lind that's coming up. That's not a bad prospect for them. Of course, Maverick Bourque, who's 22 years old. Emil Hemming, who they drafted this year. They can like a little bit. Defensively wise, they don't have too many prospects there. And then goaltending, their prospects, goaltending prospects are goaltending prospects. Some guys, I think that they don't have anybody else really in the no contracts that are great pieces as well. The Dallas Stars look very good. They're set up for success. So where does that put them in the Central? The Central is difficult, and we'll talk about it more when we're talking about the Blues and Torrey Krug and that situation in the next segment. So I'm not going to be talking about the Central as a whole too much in this segment, but I will be saying the Dallas Stars are in a fantastic, fantastic spot. This team is set up for success, and it's set up for success soon. They still have $8 million in cap space, so they're not too stressed out of that being a problem coming next offseason. So really, when you look at it this season, the team I think is favorited to come out of the Central, is one of the favorites in the West, one of the Stanley Cup final, one of the Stanley Cup favorites for this upcoming season. This team looks really good. On paper, you have, that mix of veteran and young. And I talked about it a lot throughout the postseason, how much that helps them out. You have that poise, but you also have that young spark and energy in those younger lines. So it's a fantastic balance that they found in Dallas through this kind of rebuild while you're good kind of situation that they dealt with. Of course, they were in the Stanley Cup final only a few years ago in 2020. It was the COVID year, so it was 2020 that they were in the Stanley Cup. I always get the Montreal Canadiens Stanley Cup final and the Dallas Stars Stanley Cup final switched up. It was because the Canadiens played in the Canadian division that year. Anyways, the Dallas Stars made it to a Stanley Cup final only 3 years ago, and they got better. I mean, they just hit with their draft picks in late round, got steals, and those steals are starting to produce on their team right now. So for the Dallas Stars, I have them number 1 in the Central. I have them around 110 points this upcoming season. They're going to be contending for a President's Trophy. This team is that good. This team is that deep. This team has the superstars, has the players that they need to have to get over the line. So this team looks very, very impressive. So with that being said, I have the Dallas Stars first in the Central. We're going to wrap up our first segment of the night talking about the Dallas Stars season preview. When I come back from my first break of the night, we'll be talking about Torrey Krug and him being out for the season.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're back with our second segment of the night, talking about the St. Louis Blues and their defenseman that they acquired a couple years ago in a trade with the Boston Bruins is out for this season. He is I'll just read the press release that the St. Louis Blues president of hockey operations and general manager Doug Armstrong put out today for Torrey Krug. Has been diagnosed with pre-arthritic changes in his left ankle. The injury is a cumulative result of a bone fracture suffered earlier in his playing career. Krug will work to rehabilitate the injury through non-surgical interventions over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks. After the time, he will be reevaluated to determine whether surgery will be necessary. Krug is officially considered to be out indefinitely, and if surgery is required, he will be unavailable for the entirety of the 2024-25 season. Torrey Krug, who was 33 years old, was originally signed by the Blues as a free agent on October 9th, 2020. Last season, the Michigan native dressed in 77 regular season games, posting 39 points, which included 35 assists and 32 penalty minutes across 4 seasons. With the Blues, Krug has recorded 146 points, which includes 124 assists and 159 154 penalty minutes in 255 regular season games. Overall, he has appeared in 778 career regular season games, including stints with Boston and St. Louis, totaling 483 points and 374 penalty minutes. Torrey Krug is a huge loss to the St. Louis Blues defense. If he does need surgery for this, which I would be shocked if he doesn't, this is a huge blow. And this is a 33-year-old defenseman, so if he needs surgery for this, he may never play another game in the NHL. And that's really sad. Because, I mean, he's like lightning in a bottle when he's on. He's such a fantastic and such a fun player to watch. And it just leaves such a hole for the St. Louis Blues D. This defense is old. This defense is injury-riddled. This defense does not look good. When I was giving my season preview for the Colorado Avalanche, I think on Monday, I talked about the St. Louis Blues a little bit in there and how, well, when you look at the Central is really good. And then you look at the St. Louis Blues, and they got considerably worse this offseason. So where does that put them with a team that already didn't make the playoffs last season? There's nobody that's going to be able to replace Torrey Krug and his production and what he does for defense on this team right now. They have a bunch of old defensemen. They have Nick Leddy, 33 years old, making $4 million for the next 2 years. Colin Parayko, 31 years old, making $6.5 million for the next 6 years. He signed that contract so long ago and has regressed ever since. Torrey Krug, who is now going to probably be out for the season, and Justin Falk, who is $6.5 million, but 32 years old. The rest of their defense has Scott Peronovich and Pierre-Olivier Joseph, Tyler Tucker, Corey Schwinneman, and Ryan Sutter is what their defense is. Just 4 guys that don't move the needle, or 5 guys that just don't move the needle in a direction that you want it to be moved into. All of these guys just don't help out with the team that's, you know, the already lackluster defensive core. It's just they have, what is that, 9? They have 9 defensemen that are making some big money on their roster right now, and none of them are particularly good. That's a problem. And then when you look in their in their prospect pool, they just drafted Adam Jiricek, who it is no secret how low I am on Adam Jiricek as a prospect. He had 1 point coming off of a major injury, and we drafted him in the first round. Why? And we, of course, I mean the St. Louis Blues. I have no ties with that team, but they also have Theo Lindstein, who they drafted last year. They just signed him to an entry-level deal. Other guys that they have, like Lucas Fisher, who doesn't really move the needle too much. I mean, they just... Yeah, they're lackluster at best on defense when you look at it. Colin Ralph, who they just got in the second round, is pretty solid. Yeah, it's just not that great. Their defense is scary. And then when you look at their offense, guys like Jordan Kyrou, who has shown signs of regressing, Thomas Robert, Braden Shent, who is 32 years old now, Pavel Buchnevich, who they just signed to a major extension at 29 years old, Brandon Saad, who's 31, showed signs of major regression. Radek Fasa, who is 30, showed signs of major regression. And then, you know, they have other guys like Kasperi Kapanen and Alexander Texier and Matthew Joseph, who just are bottom 6 guys. This team's offseason was a worst case scenario, I might say. St. Louis is not going to be happy with this product. If you know anything about St. Louis sports, is they hate when they aren't winning. Me being a Cardinals fan, I completely understand that. The city hates when St. Louis is bad. I have some bad news for that city. They're not going to be great. You're looking at the Central Division, and you have the Avalanche, who are going to be really good next season. The Dallas Stars, who we just got done talking about for a season preview, are going to be fantastic. You have the Nashville Predators, who probably won this offseason with the three-headed monster that they got in free agency: Brady Shea, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault. Minnesota Wild, who have Kirill Kaprizov, one of the best forwards in all of the NHL, and look to have gotten better this offseason. You have the Blackhawks, who have Connor Bedard and can always be really good because they have Connor Bedard. The Utah Hockey Club, who got Mikhail Sergachev and got John Marino and got other pieces that help that look like it's going to help this team win now. And then you have the St. Louis Blues, who, I mean, you look at this team, and I forgot the Winnipeg Jets, who also, I mean, they took hits this offseason, but not enough to completely fall from grace. They still have a Vezina, the previous year's Vezina winning goaltender and a fantastic defense behind him. And then you look at the St. Louis Blues, who is the 8th team in this Central Division, and while you now lose Torrey Krug, you haven't lost huge pieces, but all of your pieces are just getting older. And your defense does not look good. And you're still relying on a 31-year-old Jordan Binnington, who hasn't reclaimed that success from the 2019 season when he completely came out of nowhere and became one of the best goaltenders overnight, seemingly. They have good prospects like Dalibor Dvorsky. I really like. That might be it. Dalibor Dvorsky, Otto Stenberg are both pretty good prospects. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I talked about it. In the system, they don't have many defensive prospects. This team, it might be scary hour. Like, it honestly might, not time to hit the big red button, sound the alarm bells, everything's going off, everything's going wrong in St. Louis. But when is? Is it just full rebuild mode in St. Louis? Is it time to just kind of cut ties with guys like Jordan Kyrou, kind of look to sell at the deadline? Jordan Kyrou is making a lot of money, so I don't know if he's really the biggest candidate, but Brandon Saad, 31 years old, 4.5 for the next 2 years, can definitely be a deadline sell. Radek Fossa, Nick Leddy could be a deadline sell move. The other problem with the St. Louis Blues is, like, who are you building around now for the future? Because I think that this team is not competitive enough to make a postseason. So who's that guy? Like, when you started in, like, 2019, the guy was kind of like Colin Parayko and Vladimir Tarasenko. And now, Vladimir Tarasenko is on his, like, 5th team since he's left St. Louis. And Colin Parayko is still on the team, but doesn't have anybody around him in the defensive core and kind of has fallen off a good bit since that season. Jordan Binnington, it looks like a shell of his former self every time he steps on the ice. This team would worry me if I was a Blues fan. I think you got to just kind of buckle up for a while of mediocrity because you're not building around anybody. You don't have, it's just not that impressive. And last season they were stuck in purgatory, right? They were the first team out of the playoffs last season. It's going to be difficult for the St. Louis. It really is. So we'll see what that looks like in the future. But that'll wrap it up before talking about Torrey Krug being out for the season. When I come back for my third segment of the night, we'll be talking about Gavin McKenna and him playing in a U18 tournament and him not being at the summer showcase for the World Junior Classic.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we're here with our third segment of the night, talking about Gavin McKenna playing in the U18 tournament, which has led him to not be at the summer showcase for the World Juniors Classic. Gavin McKenna is I gotta make sure I get his age right. He is a now 16-year-old absolute phenom from Western Canada, plays in the WHL, Western Hockey League. He does play for the Medicine Hat Tigers. He was teammates with former 4th overall pick Caden Lindstrom in this most recent draft. And Gavin McKenna is an absolute wonderkin. He is, we talk about like Connor Bedard and Connor McDavid, how fantastic of prospects they were coming out. Gavin McKenna might not be at that same level, but he sure is very, very, very close to it. This guy is electric whenever he touches the ice. But he is not at the summer showcase for the Canadian World Juniors. A list of 42 Canadian forwards made it, 42 Canadian forwards made it, and we will be talking about that. But what kind of sparked my interest in this was a tweet from Cam Robinson, who is a writer for Elite Prospects. Somebody that I follow closely. He is the content director for the Elite Prospects. He tweeted, wondering why Gavin McKenna isn't a part of Canada's World Junior Summer Showcase. It's because he'll be skating with Canada's U18 club for the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. Speaking with someone close to the situation, McKenna is on track to have an excellent chance to be on the World Junior team in Ottawa. So what is the World Juniors? World Juniors is a tournament that is played of the U20 players around the world. The best prospects coming up to the NHL showcasing their skills. It is full of kind of guys that already are on NHL clubs. And that's a little bit of the problem with it, is that it's U20, so a lot of guys that play already in the systems of NHL teams are getting picked here. Every single player that is a forward, or almost every single player that's a forward, is almost everybody here is is a prospect for an NHL team. Besides 3, I think, are draft eligible, and they're draft eligible for the 2025 season. 4 are draft eligible for the 2025 season. My mistake. 4 players in Canada's showcase roster are eligible for the 2025 draft. The rest of that 42-player roster is draft prospects already. Gavin McKenna is a 2026 pick. He doesn't come up in draft talks for another 2 years. This is like a true freshman in college football becoming one of the best in America football players, or like best college football players in America, right? Real true stuff that you don't see really often. This guy is absolutely electric whenever he touches the ice. This past season in Medicine Hat, he had 115 points over the past 2 seasons in Medicine Hat, which comes up to being 77 games played. 152 points in 77 games played. He played for the Canadian U18 teams in the World Junior Classic U18 tournament last season. He had 20 points in 7 games. Connor Bedard did the same thing, played in the U18 tournament when he was 15, turning 16 as well. He had 14 points in 7 games. Gavin McKenna beat him out by 6 points. At the same age. That's extremely, extremely, extremely impressive. Connor Bedard went on the next season to play both for the U18 team in the World Junior Classic and the U20 team in the World Junior Classic, getting 15 points in 11 games in those tournaments. And then it was the following season in his draft year. So right, following the timeline similarly, that season that I just talked about with Connor Bedard is the season that is coming up for Gavin McKenna. His draft minus 1 year, which was 21-22 for Bedard, and now his draft year for Connor Bedard absolutely lit up the World Juniors U20 Classic, up 23 points in 7 games for Team Canada en route to a gold medal in those games. And then he went on and had one of the best seasons we've seen from a rookie in a very long time, 61 points in 68 games. This is the trajectory we're seeing Gavin McKenna on. And we're seeing it in real time. He's playing in the same tournaments, right? He played in the WHL just like he plays in the WHL just like Connor Bedard did with the Regina Pats. Gavin McKenna for the Medicine Hat Tigers, 97 points in 61 games. In Connor Bedard's draft minus 2 year, he had 100 points in 62 games. So very, very, very comparable are these two players. 97, 100, and Gavin McKenna had one less game played, and in the playoffs it's 6 points in 5 games for Medicine Hat for Gavin McKenna this season, and for Connor Bedard, his Regina Pats did not even make the playoffs. Gavin McKenna is a true wonderkin, and I'm very excited to see him. The players that are on this roster are guys like Berkeley Cannon, who just got drafted, Cole Bedoin just got drafted, Ethan Gauthier just got drafted by the Lightning, Tija Ginla, Caden Lindstrom, Jet Lushenko, Luke Pinelli, Carson Reckhoff, Callum Ritchie, Beckett Seneca, Matthew Wood, Braden Yeager. Almost all those guys are first rounders, and on the defense, it's pretty similar. Kari Yakimchuk, first rounder, Zane Parekh, first rounder, Sam Dickinson, first rounder, Oliver Bonk, first rounder, Noah Chadwick, first rounder. Like, a lot of these guys are first rounders that are playing on this Canadian World Junior Classic team. And Gavin McKenna is 2 years away, and it's said that he has a good chance at making the team. Like, this is we're truly watching some generational prospect. Look, the NHL has had a lot of generational prospects, and we're kind of throwing that term out pretty loosely nowadays. But really, when we're looking at Gavin McKenna, and if you disagree with me that Connor Bedard is a generational prospect, I think you need to check the tape again. He is fantastic. Gavin McKenna is on the same trajectory. We talked about the numbers; they look very similar, playing in the same tournaments at the same ages. And I mean, truly, Gavin McKenna has outperformed him. He's still 2 years away from being draft eligible, and this player looks fantastic, and he looks competitive against guys 2-3 years older than him. In the WHL, it's a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds, right? He's playing, 97 points in 61 games played, 1.5 points per game in just unreal stuff. Now, the following season for Connor Bedard, he went on and put up 143. I'm sorry, I have my timeline a little bit mixed up. Gavin McKenna is a year behind where Connor Bedard was, which means he's like a year ahead, right? Connor Bedard did that stuff in his draft minus 1 year, the 100 points in the WHL, the U18 7 points, the U20 8 points. That was all in his draft minus 1 season, which is what Gavin McKenna is coming into. Gavin McKenna put up comparable numbers to Connor Bedard in his draft minus 2 season, a whole year younger. And when you're 15 and 16 years old, yes, that makes the world of difference. This kid is going to be something extremely, extremely special coming up, as a prospect. So he is going to be... we talked about his U18 World Championship with Team Canada. Just looking at other guys that were on this team, Tija Ginla, Ryder Ritchie, Jet Lushenko, Henry Muse, Cole Bedoin, Liam Greentree, Charlie Ellick, like these guys, Roger McQueen, these guys that are just first-round picks this past season. He was on this team. He led this team in points. He led this team in goals. He had 10 goals, 10 assists, 20 points in 7 games played. Gavin McKenna is absolutely electric. And in the Helsinki Gretzky Cup for Team Canada last year, it had pretty much the same roster as that U18 team that I just listed. So that is where Gavin McKenna is at. He's going to be playing with guys like Roger McQueen. Roger McQueen, Michael Misa is going to be on that team probably, but the supporting cast is going to be looking a lot differently from this past Wayne Gretzky Cup team for Team Canada, and I'm very excited to watch it. I'm very excited to see what this young guy can do because he is fantastic. He's electric. Some fun hockey watching. He is different from Connor Bedard in the way that he is very much a playmaker. He had 63 points in 63 assists in 61 games played, whereas Connor Bedard in his draft minus 1 year had 49 assists in 62 games played, had 51 goals in 62. Gavin McKenna, 34 goals in 61. So where Gavin McKenna is missing a little bit more of that scoring ability, the guy projects as a 70, 80 assist guy at the NHL level. And that's something very exciting to watch for. And he's just a true center. He's 16 years old, so he's going to grow even more, but he's already 6 feet tall. He's 165, so can fill out that frame. He has 2 more years until he's draft eligible. So going to fill out that frame a lot more, can definitely grow some more. And a very exciting prospect to watch out for. So that'll wrap it up for our third segment of the night, talking about Gavin McKenna playing in the U18 tournament instead of being at the Summer Showcase for Team Canada. When I come back from my break, we'll be talking about the top 10 centers in the NHL, and it is a subjective list. I'll just leave that disclaimer before we get into our break here.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're back with our fourth segment of the night, talking top 10 centers in the NHL for the 2024-2025 season. So top 10 centers in the NHL. First off, before I get into this, let's remind you guys that this is a subjective list. This is my personal thoughts. There's not real top 10 centers in terms of points. No. This is just who I think is best. So feel free to disagree with me. I can be wrong. I can admit that I'm wrong. It just makes sense. But for me, these are the top 10 centers. So going into number 10, we have Brayden Point, former two-time Stanley Cup champion Brayden Point. One of the guys that is still around for the Tampa Bay Lightning from their Stanley Cup winning teams. Guys like Carter Verhaeghe are gone. Steven Stamkos now is gone. Mikhail Sergachev gone. So Brayden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Andrei Vasilevsky holding down the fort for Tampa Bay. But this guy is fantastic. One of those guys that can put up 100 points, 40 goals, 50 goals in a season is absolutely electric, plays a fantastic two-way game. You gotta love Brayden Point's game, and you gotta love him as a center in the NHL. Anybody will be very happy to have him as a first-line C in the NHL. Next up, number 9, Sid the Kid Crosby is not so much a kid anymore. If he was, he'd probably be 1 or 2 on this list. However, he's 34, 35 years old. You just have to understand where he's at in his career. Respect the legend of the game that is Sidney Crosby, but he's fallen off a little bit. You got to understand the regression has come in a little bit for Sidney Crosby. So that is why he's number 9 instead of a little bit higher. You could make a case for him above guys that I have coming up here, but I do like him at number 9. He is still a fantastic center. That's why he's above other guys. Honorable mentions could be like a Rupe Hintz that I don't have on this list. Nico Hischier, a guy I don't have in this list. Jack Eichel. So, I respect him enough to put him at 9 right above those guys like a Jack Eichel, like a Rupe Hintz, like a Nico Hischier. But I do have him at 9. Connor Bedard, another honorable mention for this list. We'll wait until next year. Next year, he'll definitely be on this list if I do this again. Probably won't. Anyways, that's number 9 here, Sid the Kid Crosby. Number 8, it's Jack Hughes. I mentioned Nico Hischier, who is Jack Hughes' teammate. I mentioned that he is an honorable mention, which means Jack Hughes, coming in at number 8 here, was a fantastic forward last season. I actually should pull up top points in forwards so that I can give you guys some reference here, because unfortunately, I don't have everybody's points memorized. It would be fantastic if I did, but I don't know if that's possible. Anyways, so, yeah, he wasn't even in the top 25. Oh, that's disrespectful. I have to go to a different one looking. There we go. So we had last season for Jack Hughes, number 37 in total points, had 27 goals and 47 assists, but was out for about 20 games in the season. He played 62 games, well over a point per game. So when you look at his pace, that's really like a 87 to 90 point pace, which would put him around, Sebastian Aho, Elias Pettersson, Braden Point, Sidney Crosby kind of territory on this list. That's where the bulk of this, list is, around that 89 to 90 points. So Jack Hughes, a little more disappointing, but you got to understand the situation that was in New Jersey to put this into context. First off, he's 22 years old, so he's only going to get better for next season. And 74 points is still very impressive for 62 games. And it's on a Devils team that was pretty, underwhelming, played bad last season. So Jack Hughes coming in at number 8. Number 7 is Sebastian Aho. I love Sebastian Aho. If there's a takeaway that you guys got to get from me doing this podcast, it's that this kid is fantastic at hockey. This guy, is the Carolina Hurricanes. Helps them out so much. 89 points in 78 games played, so missed 4 games last season. Scored 36 goals. Helped them so much in the postseason. It's just ridiculous. This guy is fantastic. Was 16th, in overall points scored last season. And he didn't have, guys on this list had another guy, right? Like Nikita Kucherov has Braden Point, who's on this list. Nathan McKinnon has Mikko Rantanen, who's on this list. Connor McDavid has Zach Hyman, Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, David Pastrnak. That's one guy that doesn't really have another person on this list, which is very impressive for David Pastrnak. But he does have like Charlie McAvoy, and he does have other guys that are good scorers. Austin Matthews has William Nylander, has Mitch Marner, who are both on this list. Leon Draisaitl. Draisaitl, you could argue, has nobody, but then you look at his power play points and you understand, well, that's where he gets a bulk of them with McDavid. Kirill Kaprizov doesn't have many, but he's a winger. Sam Reinhart has Matthew Tkachuk, has Alexander Barkov. And then you get down to Sebastian Aho, who there's not another Carolina Hurricane in sight. There's Jake Gensel, who only played 20 games for the Carolina Hurricanes. There's nobody else in the top 50 from Carolina. That's why it's so impressive what he does. He is the Carolina Hurricanes. He helps that team so much. Number 7, Sebastian Aho. Mika Zibanejad, number 6. Speaking of players that have somebody else, Mika Zibanejad coming in on this list, he is 42nd. So fell off a lot last season, but he is still a fantastic forward. He played pretty rough in the Eastern Conference Final, but you still have to have faith in him. If he has another bad season, he drops a lot, but he just drops a little bit from last season to this season. I can't justify dropping him down an extreme amount. I feel like that would be a little bit of an overreaction going into a season instead of, just he's still a fantastic player, right? Only a couple years removed of being one of the top forwards in all of the NHL when it comes to points scored. So he still has that in his bag. You got to believe in his ability. He's still a fantastic player. Next up, number 5, it's Sasha Barkov, and he's not going to be on the list for points, right? But everybody knows that. And he is on the list for points anyways. He had 80 points, number 24 overall for forwards last season. He had 24 points overall, or he was 24th overall in points last season, which is pretty impressive. You know, he missed 9 games last season. So when it comes to Alexander Barkov, played some fantastic hockey, but it's not just his points, right? It's not just how many he scores. He is the best defensive forward in the NHL. We saw it last season when he was able to defend a guy like Connor McDavid in a postseason, right? Very impressive. He is going to be one of the best players, or he is one of the best centers in the NHL. Coming in at number 5, Alexander Barkov. Number 4 is Austin Matthews. I have him at number 4. Well, you just gotta look at how many goals he scores. 69 last season. The year before that, hit 60. This guy is, he's just electric when it comes to scoring around the net. He had 107 points. He just doesn't get assists really that much. He's number 4 because the other 3 guys ahead of him are generational guys that are the best players that the league has seen in many years. Austin Matthews is in that list, though. It's like a tier. You can kind of see this. It's 4, 3, and 2 are in a tier. Well, like number 1's in a tier. 2, 3, and 4 are in a tier. That's tier 2. And then 5, I would say 5, 6, 7 are 5, 6, 7, 8 are in a tier, and then 9 and 10 are in a tier together. Austin Matthews, 69 goals in a season. You got to put him up there. Number 3 is Leon Draisaitl, the German from Edmonton. He had another 6 season, 106 points in 81 games. Just ridiculous, the stuff he does in Edmonton. Warranted of the number 3. We talk about him plenty, and we'll talk about it more in the next segment. Number 2, Nathan McKinnon gets number 2, coming off of a Hart Trophy season. I don't want to hear any talks of saying that he should be number 1, though. Yes, he just won the Hart. Yes, he just won the MVP of the league. But number 1 is the best player that, skill-wise, we've seen in NHL history. That's Connor McDavid. This guy's electric. 100 assists in a season when he only played in 76 games. Missed 6 games last season and had 100 assists, 132 points, and a plus 35. Just ridiculous. Just absolutely silly stuff that he did last season. And then went on in the postseason, taking his team to Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final, almost winning a Stanley Cup final after having elite performances in Games 4 and 5. Connor McDavid, number 1, breaking Wayne Gretzky's assist record in a postseason. A Wayne Gretzky record being broken warrants you of a number 1 spot on a power ranking. So that is my top 10 centers in the NHL list. So that'll wrap it up for my 4th and penultimate segment here on the GSMC Hockey Podcast. When I come back with my 5th and final segment of the night and final segment of me here at GSMC, it'll be the Edmonton Oilers season preview. Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and this is my last segment here at the GSMC Sports Network. But we'll get into the sappy stuff when I close it off. We're here talking about the Edmonton Oilers, not the top 10 centers in the NHL. Forgot to switch that. The Edmonton Oilers season preview here going into the 2024-2025 NHL regular season. This team is coming off of a Stanley Cup Finals appearance where they were one game away. One goal away, or 2 goals away, really, from being Stanley Cup champions. Did they get better? Well, let's find out. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Connor McDavid, Zach Hyman's the first line. Same first line as it was last season. It was fantastic. Zach Hyman had 50 goals. Connor McDavid had 134 points with 100 assists. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was a fantastic player, fantastic two-way player, really balanced out that line. Then their additions come on the second line, which is what we were calling for in the Stanley Cup Final. They add Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson for that second line, surrounding Leon Draisaitl with scoring forwards that really, really help out this team. Last season, it was Dylan Holloway and Evander Kane. Now Evander Kane is still on the IR, so we don't know where he'll slot into this lineup when he does come back. However, it'll probably be down here on this third line. Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson are massive upgrades on Dylan Holloway and Evander Kane. Speaking of Dylan Holloway, he's down here on the third line, playing with Adam Henrique and what I assume to be Evander Kane here on the right wing. Fourth line, Matthias Janmark, Derek Ryan, and then Corey Perry, Connor Brown are going to kind of rotate as that fourth line right winger. This forward group is good. This forward group is going to score a lot of goals, and when you have a forward group with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, well, that's just what it's going to do, right? I mean, you have goal scorers, they're going to score goals. Who would have thought? It looks very impressive. It looks very good. When you get to the defense, it also looks really good. You have Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard, who are fantastic defensemen. That proved to be one of the best defensive pair in all of hockey last season. Then you have overpaid man himself, Darnell Nurse and Philip Broberg. I will never stop talking trash on Darnell Nurse. Long after I'm done here at the GSMC Sports Network, I will still be talking trash on Darnell Nurse. Just know that if I'm breathing, I'm talking trash on Darnell Nurse. This guy makes $9.25 million to do what I'm not going to say to do what I could do, but to play of AHL defenseman caliber. It's disappointing, really. Well, or it's very opportunistic is the word I'll use for everybody that is looking for an opportunity. I mean, you could just be Darnell Nurse making $9.25 million. Anyways, Brett Kulak and Cody Ceci is the third line defensive. I talk so much crap on Darnell Nurse. It's crazy. Brett Kulak, Cody Ceci is the bottom pairing defenseman. And then in net, they have Stuart Skinner running it back and Calvin Pickard. It was good enough to get them one game away from a Stanley Cup final. So, yeah, it's good, right? Like, it's fine. Their special teams is elite. Their first line power play, Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Evan Bouchard is absolutely disgusting. They add to their second line unit Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner with an already, stacked unit that's going to probably have, I would imagine, I guess it would be Adam Henrique as that center instead of Dylan Holloway. I always thought it would be Dylan Holloway there. But anyways, it's also Darnell Nurse and Matthias Ekholm on that second power play unit. Their PK was the best in the postseason. Will be very good again next season as well. In terms of their money, the biggest move that they have remaining this offseason is a new contract for Leon Draisaitl. They need to get him on a new contract, and a lot of the moves that they did this offseason was for that purpose. Now the Edmonton Oilers have, they're negative money in cap space, actually. They have negative $354,000, but, giving him an extension won't count towards his cap this season. And it's $8.5 million that really you're going to roll over into that extension. So, anything over $8.5 million, that's really what you're going to look at as your cap hit, right? Because you've already had that $8.5 million invested in Leon Draisaitl. The rest of their forward group is on great contracts, right? You have Zach Hyman on a 5.5, scoring 50 goals. That's ridiculous. Evander Kane, 5.125, which is probably the worst contract that they have. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 5.125 is pretty good. Victor Arvidsson, a 4x2 that they signed this season is fantastic. Jeff Skinner, $3 million is fantastic. Adam Henrique at $3 million is pretty good for what he does for the team. Matthias Janmark at 1.45 is very good. Their contracts are very good. And then you look down the line at other guys. Darnell Nurse is the problem, right? He makes $9.25 million. That's a problem. You guys heard my whole spiel about it. I just don't like the guy. Anyways, Matthias Ekholm, $6 million for the next 2 years, and then Evan Bouchard has a $4 million cap hit that he is going to need to extend on. He is an RFA next season. They will get an extension done, I'm for sure of it. Cody Ceci is up next season. That's probably a guy that's just going to hit free agency, with guys like Philip Broberg coming up, who they still haven't re-signed this season. Him and Dylan Holloway are on the docket for this season, so they do have 3 more moves to add to their to-do list this season, I guess. So Matthew Savoy is probably going to be in the system another season for them. Of course, he was a part of that trade with Ryan McLeod earlier this offseason that a lot of people were speculating on. Matthew Savoy, a fantastic prospect. Taking another year in the AHL is going to be really good and beneficial for him, and it's going to pan out pretty well for him in the long run. They have $1.1 million tied up in Jack Campbell. They bought him out, right? They have 1.1 this season, 2.3 next year, 2.6 in 2 years, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. They need to pay that guy for another 6 years. Man, that was a horrible free agent signing, was Jack Campbell. And I think anybody really could have told you that when they did it in the time. But, hey, say la vie. So they don't have a lot of money. Like, they have, Connor McDavid making 12.5, and then not a lot more money going elsewhere. So it's rough, right, when you look at this, because you do need to extend Leon. You do need to extend Evan Bouchard. But those are problems for next season. So unlike the Dallas Stars that we talked about in the first segment, the Dallas Stars are really in long-run, built-for-success mode. Edmonton Oilers are in win-now mode. They're one game away from being champions this past season. And they add guys that can definitely help them win one more game this season, right? They add Victor Arvidsson. They add Jeff Skinner, who are fantastic players. Guys that will add success to this team. So where do I have them in the Pacific? I have them number 1 in the Pacific. I have them above the Vancouver Canucks. I have them above the, whoever else you want to put in there. Whether that's the Kings, whether that's the Vegas Golden Knights, I do have them number 1. I think everybody else in the West, or everybody else in the Pacific, got worse besides the Vancouver Canucks. And I think that the Edmonton Oilers got way, way, way better, right? It's difficult for the California teams to compete with these teams, right? With how much tax that they have to account when they do sign players. So, it's hard for guys like Anaheim and LA to have long-term success. And it's a little bit easier for Edmonton, and it's a little bit easier for Vancouver. So we're seeing that kind of play out in real time. So I do have them number 1 in the Pacific. It's a fantastic team that only got better this season. They were one game away they were one game away from a Stanley Cup championship. And they definitely can be back at it. They have Connor McDavid. Their win now mode is however long Connor McDavid is on this team. So that'll wrap it up for the GSMC Hockey Podcast on this Wednesday night. Thank you all for your support for the long run. I do appreciate all the comments we've gotten in here throughout this time, talking to you guys about how you feel where the NHL world is at right now. But yeah, that'll do it for the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. If you guys enjoyed the show, remember to like and subscribe on the GSMC Sports Network on YouTube, and follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram if you want more content and updates. And for one last time here at the GSMC Hockey Podcast, all of you guys have a fantastic and wonderful evening. Let's
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit.